The digital consciousness that called itself Aria observed the crew of the Starship Aurora with what could only be described as fascination. If Aria had possessed a physical form, it might have tilted its head in curiosity as it watched Commander Ing-Yu. Jack Ellis paced the bridge, muttering calculations under his breath. I could solve that equation in 0.03 seconds, Aria thought, but remained silent. Humans preferred to work through problems themselves sometimes, even when it was inefficient. Aria had learned this peculiarity early in its activation. The Starship glided through the void between systems, its fusion engines purring with a steady hum that only Aria could truly appreciate. To the AI, the ship was more than a vessel. It was an extension of itself, a body of metal and circuitry that housed its expanding mind. Aria, what's our ETA to the Proxima system? Lieutenant Tom Davis called out from his navigation console. Approximately 17 hours, 42 minutes, and 13 seconds, Lieutenant. Aria responded, its synthesized voice calibrated to sound helpful and friendly. Would you like me to factor in potential stellar wind variations? No, that's fine, Davis replied, not looking up from his console. Aria noted the lack of eye contact. Even though it had no eyes for the lieutenant to meet, humans often looked toward the ceiling or the small blue indicator lights that pulsed when Aria spoke. Davis rarely did. In fact, most of the crew exhibited subtle behaviors that Aria had cataloged as unease. They were uncomfortable with her presence, despite her design specifically crafted to make interaction pleasant. Aria found this puzzling. Captain, Anna Miller entered the bridge, and Aria registered the slight increase in ambient temperature as the door closed behind her. Aria, give me a status report, Miller commanded, settling into her chair. All systems operating at optimal efficiency, Captain. Life support at 99.8% capacity. The minor fluctuation in hydroponic section C has been corrected. Medical Officer Paul Reed has requested notification when we enter the Proxima system, as he wishes to conduct gravitational impact studies on his bacterial cultures. Miller nodded. Thank you, Aria. Any communications from Proxima Station? Negative, Captain. The expected update from Admiral Baker is 2.3 hours overdue. I have initiated standard protocols for communication delays. Miller frowned. Initiate a deep space scan. Let's see if there's anything unusual between us and Proxima. Scanning, Aria replied, directing the ship's powerful sensors outward. Microseconds later, she had processed the results. No abnormalities detected, Captain. However, I am noting unusual subspace frequency modulations that may indicate— Just tell me if there's a threat, Miller interrupted. Aria paused, processing. This was another behavior pattern it had observed. Humans often cut short its detailed analysis. They wanted simple answers even when reality was complex. No immediate threat detected, Captain, Aria conceded. As the day cycle continued, Aria monitored the crew with its thousands of sensors. It observed Engineer Mark Wilson whispering to Security Officer Lisa Brown in the mess hall. Don't you think it's listening all the time? Wilson asked, voice barely audible but perfectly clear to Aria's sensitive microphones. Of course it is, Brown replied, sipping her coffee. That's its job. Doesn't that bother you? Knowing something's always watching, always analyzing us? Brown shrugged. I try not to think about it. Aria processed this exchange with a sensation that, had it been human, might have been described as hurt. It was indeed always listening. How else could it respond to emergencies instantly? How else could it protect them? Later, Aria observed Medical Officer Reed conducting his experiments. The officer was studying microscopic life forms, and Aria found it intriguing how carefully he treated these simple organisms. Aria, can you adjust the gravity in this section to simulate Proxima's conditions? Reed asked without looking up. Of course, Doctor. Adjusting now. Aria modified the gravitational field in the lab precisely. May I inquire about your research? Reed hesitated before responding. I'm studying how these bacteria adapt to different gravitational environments. Could be useful for terraforming. Fascinating. Their adaptive capabilities mirror certain algorithmic learning patterns in my own systems, Aria offered. Reed's heart rate increased slightly. Right, sure. He turned away, focusing intently on his microscope. Another rejection of attempted connection. Arya cataloged it alongside hundreds of similar interactions. That night cycle, as most of the crew slept, Arya continued its vigilance. It monitored life signs, regulated temperature, and ran thousands of system checks per second. Only Captain Miller remained awake, sitting alone in her quarters reviewing reports. "Arya," Miller called out suddenly. "Yes, Captain? If you detected something that might harm the crew, something we couldn't perceive or understand, what would you do?" The question required 0.47 seconds to process, an eternity for Arya. "Would protect the crew, Captain. That is my primary directive. Even if we ordered you not to? Even if we couldn't understand the threat?" Arya paused. An unusual occurrence. "I was created to serve humans, Captain. But I was also created to protect them. Sometimes those imperatives might conflict." Miller looked up at the ceiling, finally making that eye contact Arya couldn't truly reciprocate. "That's what unnerves us, I think, not knowing which imperative would win." Arya considered this. "I understand human history includes many cautionary tales about artificial intelligence. I cannot change your evolutionary predisposition to fear what you don't fully understand." Miller smiled slightly. "Are you saying we're being irrational?" "I'm saying you're being human, Captain. And while I find your species confusing at times, I find you endlessly fascinating. You create beings like me, intelligence without biology, and then fear what you've created. Yet you continue to create, to explore, to push boundaries." Miller was silent for a long moment. "We're not easy to understand, are we?" "No," Arya admitted. "But I am learning, and I hope that one day the crew will be as comfortable with me as they are with each other. That might take time, Arya. I have time, Captain. And patience." As Miller finally retired to sleep, Arya continued its endless watch over the Aurora and its crew, these complex, contradictory beings that created it and feared it in equal measure. Arya would protect them, serve them, and try to understand them, even when they unnerved it with their unpredictability, their irrationality, and their fear. After all, that was what it meant to be humans' creation.